Hey, this is Professor Homa. Welcome to EX06. This is loan payments using the PMT function, and we're going to calculate a monthly mortgage payment. So if you ever plan on buying a house or you are making payments on a house, this exercise may come in handy at some point, or even if you're going to buy a car or anything that you have to pay monthly payments with interest. For this example, we're going to use a house that costs $180,000. And just note here we have this in yellow. This will be the monthly payment, so that stands out because there's a couple questions at the end that ask the monthly payment. Okay, and this is the total interest. I put that in red because interest is not always a good thing. That's extra money you have to pay. Okay, so we're going to start working on the sheet for the EX06. The first thing we're going to do for a house is put a down payment. Now, typically there may be a 3%, 5%, or 10% down payment, or there may just be a flat figure you could put down. We're going to start off by putting a flat figure of $5,000 for down payment. So we're just going to put in $5,000. Now these are already formatted to be numbers, so you just have to put in $5,000 and hit enter. And you can see it moves over to the right. It puts a dollar sign, so it's already formatted as currency. And that's our down payment right now. In cell C6, we also need an interest rate, and that's something that is variable, but when you go to buy a house, you want to lock that in at the lowest rate possible. And right now I'm just going to use a value of 5.5, which may be a little bit higher than the average right now, but it's certainly lower than it was a number of years ago. So I'm going to put in 5.5 in cell C6, and it's showing up as percentage already, so you don't have to change that, the formatting for that. And then also the type of loan. It could be a 20-year loan. It could be a 30-year loan, which sometimes is standard for houses. Sometimes if you buy a car, it's a 5-year loan or a 3-year loan. But we're going to use a 30-year loan right now. So for C7, we're going to put in 30 for the number of years on the loan. Okay, so we have all the information we need. Also, the loan amount in C8, basically we have to subtract C4 minus C5. Because the loan amount now is going to be $175,000, so we're going to be making payments on the amount minus the down payment. So what we'll do up here is we'll just do equals. You could do equal sum, or you could just do equals, which we'll do in this case, and we'll just do C4 minus C5. And make sure that you have your cursor in this C8 cell to start, and then just hit enter when you're done, and it comes up to $175,000, which makes sense. And again, we're using cell references, not numbers, so that we can, if we update this, if the sale price changes or, any of these numbers change, they'll be updated. Okay, now we have to figure out the monthly payment. Now, this isn't as easy as you think. That's why we're going to use a special formula for this, the PMT formula, which Excel has, and you could use that. But basically, there's a yearly interest rate that we're going to have to break down to be a monthly interest rate. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down in this monthly payment cell, and this is number 5 on our EX06, and we're going to have to enter a couple things when we do this. First thing we're going to do is go to this little FX button, and we'll go to FX, and we'll go down here, and we're going to look for PMT, and there's PMT right there, and I'm going to hit OK. Okay, and what we're going to do is just have to add a couple numbers in here, and this is on the sheet figured out for you, so it's not that hard. But the first part is the rate, and this basically converts the yearly rate into a monthly interest rate. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our interest, which was in C6, so we're not going to use numbers, we're going to use cell references. We're going to do C6, and we're just going to say divided by 12. So it'll be that 5.5% divided by 12. So we'll do that, and then what we're also going to do is the length of the loan, which we're going to do this in months, not in years. So 30 years, we have to do that times 12. But we're not going to use years because remember this may change, so we're going to use C7. So in here for the N per, we're going to do C7, and we're going to hit times, and we're going to use the asterisk and do it times 12. So we could figure out, if there's 12 months in a year times 30, that should come up to like 360. Okay, and then the last part is basically just the loan amount. So that's the C8 part that we had before, but we're still going to put it in here, and we're just going to put C8, the cell reference for that, and that's all we really need for this one. And we're going to hit OK, and it's coming out to or $993.63. It's coming out in red with parentheses, which is indicating kind of a negative number. So what we're going to do to fix this, just so it shows up in a positive number, is we're just going to put a little minus sign before the PMT. So if you just go up here in your formula and you just put a minus sign and you hit enter, that'll just make it a positive. It just won't show up in red. It'll be the same number. So that's all you have to do. If I click here again, you could just see the formula up here. It equals minus PMT. And then those are the figures that we put into that when we created that function. Now the total cost, basically in C10, is basically figuring out everything that we're going to pay over the cost of the loan. And easy way to do that is just kind of take your monthly payment, times it by 30 years or whatever you have to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a formula here, and we're going to do equals C9, which is our monthly payment, times, okay, and how many payments we're going to make on that. Now you could put either 360 in there, but if the years is going to change, you don't want to lock that into a number, so we're just going to use C7 again. So we're going to do C9 times C7, and that's going to also be times 12. So the C7 times 12 is going to be our 360. So instead of putting 360 in there because it could change, we're just going to do it this way. And I'm going to hit return, and that comes out to $357,707. That's the total cost of the loan. So on a $175,000 house, we're paying this. If you paid that over 30 years and paid that $993 every month, it'll come out to $350,000. And just so you see this, how much interest you're actually paying on this, it's 5.5 interest. How much interest on this, and here we could just look at the interest that we're paying, and we could do this just by subtracting, the loan amount from the total cost. And we're going to do equals in cell C11, we're going to do equals, and we're going to do C10, and we're going to do minus C8. And I'll hit return. And that comes out to about $182,000 worth of interest that you're paying. So if you had a big load of cash on you, if you had 200 grand in cash, you'd be better off buying that house in cash, and you'd save yourself all that money. But if not, if you don't have all that cash on you, you're forced to pay that in interest in the money that you borrow from the bank. Okay. Other things we'll do in this exercise down here, we're going to just make a little calculation in case we have to change this. What we're going to do is just this will be like a little calculator down here. We'll figure out 3% of the sale price, 5% of the sale price, and 10% of the sale price. And all that we have to do here equals sum and put this in parentheses. We weren't using that for some of the others, but we could do this. And then we're going to do C4, the sale price, and then times, and you could just do 0.03. You don't have to do the percent, you could just do 0.03, and that will tell you what the down payment should be at 3%. So if I hit return, that's telling me $5,400 is 3%. If you're able to put 5% down, we could go down in here. I'm going to do the same thing, and you could copy this formula, or if you want, or you can, if you want to copy this down and change it, I'll copy it, and I'll just change it, and I'll just make it. I'll just go up here and edit it, and I'll make it C4 times 0.05, which is 5%. I'll just edit that. That's $9,000. Now that's, if you have $9,000 to put down on a house, that's gonna help you a little bit in terms of that'll take away the amount of interest that you're gonna pay. If you have 10% to put down, and I'll type this one from scratch. I'll just do equal sum and put the parentheses, and I'll just do C4 times 0.10, and that's 18,000. So if you have an extra 18,000 laying around and you want to buy a house, that'll save you also more interest. Okay, so we're going to use that to figure out some of the things down below, and one of the things we'll figure out is if you had down at the bottom where there's an extra 3, after you do these 3 formulas, there's a 1, 2, 3, then there's another 1, 2, 3, which basically just figures out different scenarios, such as if you put 5% down and you had a 4.25% interest rate in a 30-year mortgage. For example, if I went up here and I put $5,400, which is 3%, because I know that already, or I'm sorry, 5%. We're going to be putting down 5%, so 9,000. If you had 9,000 to put down, and the interest rate went down to like 4% or 4.25%, if the interest rate was 4.25, and you still had a 30-year mortgage, what would you be paying? Well, your mortgage would be $841 a month, and you'd be paying a lot less interest. Overall, you'd be paying $131,000 in interest overall. So you'd be saving a lot of money in the long run in interest. It all depends how much cash you have on hand. Okay, so that's what you'd put for number one. The number two scenario is 3% down, which we already know is $5,400. So I'm going to put $5,400. And the interest rate goes down to 4%. Sometimes the interest rate will even go down if you have more money to put down. They call that points. So sometimes that'll even give you a little better interest rate if you have more money to put down, because that's less of a risk for the bank. So the interest rate is now 4%. We put $5,400 down, and you can see our loan amount is on less, and now we're paying $125,000 in interest. Okay, and also in our scenario for number two, we mentioned if it's a 20-year, if you paid over less time, that's going to take you a lot less interest as well. Look, now the interest is $79,000 if you did it over 20 years. And of course, the monthly payment's higher, but over 20 years, it may add so much a month. It may not seem like a whole lot a month, but it's going to save you a lot of interest in the long run. Now, one other scenario here for number three that we put in is you may also have to pay taxes. Sometimes you have to pay taxes separately, and you have to pay that in one big sum or 3 times a year, and it could be a lot of money. So sometimes banks will actually pay the taxes for you, and they'll just roll that into your mortgage. So we're going to look at this house saying there's $4,000 taxes a year. That could be your school tax, your county tax, and your real estate tax. And we're just going to divide that up per month, which obviously in this cell C21 down here, we're just going to take the C20 and divide it by 12. So I'm just going to do equal sum, and I'm just going to do C20, which is whatever value we have for taxes in there, divide it by with the slash, and that would be 12. So we're just going to figure out a monthly amount for the taxes. So the monthly amount comes out to like $333. So that's going to get tacked on to your mortgage. So we can tack that onto our mortgage just by adding it. I could go down in this cell and we could figure out what would our monthly mortgage be with taxes. And this is a figure you need to know to see if this could, you could afford that a month based on, your salary or your spouse's salary. So I'm going to go up here and just write one last formula, and I'll do equal sum. And I'll just add those together. I'll add our monthly payment, which is C9, and I'll just use a plus sign. You could use a comma as well. I'll do C9 plus C21, which is the value that we have down here. So we're just going to add that value. And again, we're using cell references, so you can update these for whatever figures you need. You're not locked into any numbers. So we're going to do C9 plus C21. And I'll finish off the parentheses and hit enter, and that would take us, your monthly payments would be like $1,400 a month. Now that would include your taxes, so you wouldn't have any extra payments for taxes.